বসলে এসে পানি এসে ভেঙে ফিরে যায় ওর তো বোঝাই গেছে যে দেবো ঘা নদীর কাছারে যে বাড়ি একটা ঘুম হয় না তো ভাঙে না ঝড় ভাঙে না হয় না কিনা
ওই মাথায় ছিল আমাদের এই পুরোনো হাট বাজার স্কুল আমরা ওইখান থেকে ভেঙে এই জায়গায় তাও শিফট করে চলে আসি ইতিমধ্যে আমরা ইউনিয়ন কমপ্লেক্স ভবন বিলীন হয়ে গেছে একটা প্রাইমারি স্কুল চলে গেছে হাই স্কুল আপনি দেখতে পাচ্ছেন এখন গভর্নমেন্ট বিক্রি করে দিচ্ছে এটা এখান থেকে শিফট করে চলে যাবে অন্যদিকে হাট বাজার গুলো চলে যাবে
When we come to such places and we ask what is climate change, it makes no sense. We say what is environmental damage and it makes no sense. We say biodegradation, it makes no sense. Because to the whole world, it is all about the Arctic ice melting and oceans rising and maybe early spring in Kew Gardens. But out here in a remote part of Bangladesh, where people have to leave their homes year after year, every year, once, twice, thrice, 5 times, climate change, nature as it is now, is about losing their livelihood, is about losing their homes, is about losing their families. That is the message we don't always hear. In South Asia, where Bangladesh is located, the climate is almost everything. Floods, droughts, river erosions occur regularly, affecting millions of lives. Rising sea level is an extra addition to a constant state of environmental crisis. But does anyone care? We went on a journey to look at the early footprints of a frightening future.
Since 60% of the population directly depend on agriculture at the moment, all these people, especially the poor, those who are actually trying to eke out a living out of agriculture, they will be devastated, especially along the western zone where drought is most prominent, and along the coastal zones where salinity and drought both are interacting.
Heat waves, dense fog, high salinity are now features of a changing climate in the northern part of Bangladesh. In an impoverished country, the poor are the worst hit and most vulnerable. Various NGOs are now talking to local officials, explaining how climate change will impact on lives, hoping action can be taken.
Heat wave যেটা অলরেডি বেড়ে গেছে গরমকালে এবং পাশাপাশি শীতকালে যেটা হচ্ছে যে কুয়াশা কুয়াশাটা অনেক বেশি দেখা যায় রবি ক্রপগুলি বিশেষ করে পেঁয়াজ সরিষা পাতাগুলি বা ফুলগুলি পচে যাচ্ছে ড্রট সিজনে যেটা হচ্ছে যে পানি পাচ্ছে না লোকজন পানি না পাওয়ার ফলে এখানে ক্রপ ল্যান্ডগুলিতে তার সেচ দিতে পারতেছে না এবং সেই পরিমাণ ক্রপ প্রোডাকশন করতে পারতেছে না
যারা ধনী দেশ তারা আরো ধনী হচ্ছে কিন্তু তাদের শিল্পায়নের কারণে বেশি ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হচ্ছে আমরা এই গরিব দেশগুলো তো সেইভাবে গরিব মানুষগুলো বেশি ক্ষতিগ্রস্ত হবে যেহেতু এর মুখোমুখি হওয়ার যে যোগ্যতাটা দরকার তারা এই জিনিসটা পাবে না বলে তারা আস্তে আস্তে কিন্তু ধ্বংসের দিকেই চলে যাচ্ছে
We have found very clearly that the subtropics and tropics are going to be the region that will have perhaps the most serious impacts of climate change. There are some areas geographically that are very vulnerable to sea level rise, and that includes Bangladesh, a large part of India, the coastal regions of India, but particularly the Sundarbans, which are very fragile ecology.
There in Sundarbans, but just about that, all these areas are actually under saline regime. So both salinity and drought, salinity here and drought, these will affect. Moreover, part of the southwestern Bangladesh is under water during normal monsoon as well. So we have both flooding and then during dry season drought as well as salinity increasing.
We journeyed to the southwestern region of Bangladesh where sweet water is very scarce. Life is largely about collecting drinking water in this extremely poor area where many livelihoods have been destroyed.
নোনা পানি চেতে যায় না টুজু করা যায় না কোনো কিছু করা চাল দেওয়া যাবে না এই পানিটা চোখ জ্বালা যায় আর বর্ষা হলে এটা বুড়ে যাবে দুটো সাত পাঁচ দেরি লাগাবে নামে পানি আনতে হবে দুটি থেকে এখানে মরবে খালি গরিব লোকগুলো
ছোট বাচ্চাদের ঘাপাচা হয়েছে বাসায় কি আমার এক নাম নিয়ে তাই আমি বলতেছি তার ঘাই মানে আইতে গেছে, এখন আমার মলমাইনে তার ছাড়তে আসছে, ও তবুও এই পানিটা ব্যবহার করতে আসছে।
It's home to Sundarbans, a cross-border mangrove forest straddling both India and Bangladesh. Severely affected by climate change and environmental degradation, several low-lying islands have already disappeared in this area under the waters of the Bay of Bengal. One can see at a distance the outlines of a forest. Very close by, you can see what is called Sundarbans, which is probably the world's largest mangrove forest. But all around you can see the water. And one can't say where the river ends or the ocean begins. But this is very salty water, and it has been increasing. And the trees are already being drowned. And now people are think of the ocean as having come into land. And that means basically that this mangrove forest, possibly the largest in the world, may not survive for long. Although this is the largest fooding plant, probably in South Asia or maybe the whole world, one does know that this is an indicator that land inside the forest and close by have all disappeared under the sea. This is where climate change isn't going to happen. It has happened already. August 2007, Dhaka, capital city of Bangladesh. The whole of South Asia in general and Bangladesh in particular is going through what is probably the worst floods in decades, some say in living memory. But what is important is what you see around you is really habitation. What you see around are people, lives, homes, and these have all drowned under the floods. This has happened in one country, two countries, three countries, and probably happened this year to many other countries. If you see behind you, you see a long skyline, and across the skyline, what you only see is water. Basically, this is what floods do to these areas, and especially to Bangladesh regularly. But every few years, it does it at a scale which is unprecedented. It does it at a scale which causes suffering, like people are short of medicine, people are short of food, people are short of livelihood, all of them washed away, and they have nobody to turn to. It's so very easy to ignore Bangladesh when it drowns. It's so easy to ignore the poor when they drown. And this is what is happening, and this is what flood does to people. The bad news, this is going to happen more and more. Climate change will make it a regular part of life, and there is no way people know up till now how to cope with this situation. We are crossing under the bridge. Normally this wouldn't be so difficult. It's a situation where the waters have risen and the traffic under the bridge has had to stop. The boats cannot go this way anymore. Right behind you, you can see fresh water being ferried while there is water everywhere. This is what flood does to people. So we hear, about that 1/3 of Bangladesh may disappear underwater. When we say, okay, this is the map of Bangladesh, where is the 1/3?
During peak monsoon, all these areas are embanked in the south. So these embankments are often overtopped by mid tide. So during monsoon, these areas will be inundated. Then probably it will be costly to just put the water outside the embankment. Then again, next season there will be more water inundating that area. So there will be intermittent inundation during every mid tide during peak monsoon.
We journeyed through the coastal resort district of Cox's Bazar, which lies on the Bay of Bengal. It's a long beach, but the sea is a regular generator of killer cyclones, now increasing in numbers every year. The tourists enjoy a holiday, but life here has already been brutalized by a sea that offers dwindling catches, no shelter or safety. In the Bay of Bengal, the sea, which is probably going to cause death and livelihood loss to more people than any sea in the world. We are close to one of the islands, which is a point where fishermen come to deposit their catch and often dry fish. But all this is temporary, because this is going to end as the sea rises. And the islands that you can see all around and that we can see all around us, these are all like dying relatives. They have all been condemned to death. And to them, the climate change word doesn't have a meaning. But what has a meaning is that their lives and their livelihoods are slowly going away.
If you look at the possible impacts on Bangladesh, and of course parts of West Bengal as well, they could be very serious, because not only is there danger of large areas of land being submerged, we are likely to see the harmful impacts of storm surges, of cyclones, all of which will become much more severe because of sea level rise.
আর আপনারা থাকেন কোন জায়গায়? আপনারা থাকেন ওই গ্রামের মধ্যে? ওই অত দূরে? আচ্ছা, সমুদ্রটা আস্তে আস্তে এরকম করে? আর যদি সমুদ্র আর আসে তখন আপনারা যাবেন কই? কি করবো, আল্লাহ যা করে।
Local people, especially in the coastal area, they don't understand climate change happening, but they can certainly relate that change with their livelihood and the struggle they are in. And because of high level of insecurity, food insecurity, employment insecurity, livelihood insecurity, they'll have to probably migrate out.
One of the things that is sure to happen and has already happened is the movement of people, both internal, the people we call internally displaced people, IDPs, and also people going beyond the borders. And this is an issue because our cities are not big enough to contain the IDPs.
If people are going to lose land in Bangladesh, they are not just going to get into the sea and start living in the sea. They are going to go in search of new land. There were reports in the Indian press that refugees from Bangladesh have migrated to Sundarbans. If Sundarbans are destroyed, can Bangladesh be saved?
There is no legal migration regime. So they end up being illegal migrants. And when they become illegal, then you can well understand that they end up in an area which is very difficult to live. There are human rights violations. They are battered everywhere.
Inevitably, migration is the result. Millions crowd into Dhaka streets as the capital is collapsing under the weight of its refugees. Refugees are never popular. Residents of Cox's Bazar complain about Myanmar refugees, accusing them of terrorist links and social problems.
The Rohingyas are posing a great problem, demographically and economically also. And it is also rumored that these people are resorting to nefarious activities like terrorism, all these things. Most of the refugees, actually, they are stationed in their refugee camps. But there are some other people who are not registered with these refugee camps. These people are creating problems. And it is also rumored that these people have got relation with the terrorists who are operating in different areas of the country.
All conflicts today, whether they are internal or between nations, tend to articulate themselves more and more in the form of terrorist activity, whether these are proxy wars or whether they are internal terrorism. Because this is among the most, shall we use an inappropriate term, efficient and economical forms of violence, particularly
which can be harnessed by small groups against very much larger powers. So I see every factor that will incline to increase tension or conflict in this region will feed into greater terrorism.
Refugees can become a problem as politics across the globe becomes more unstable. It could be one of the most deadly byproducts of climate change.
I think in the past, India has seen a number of refugees coming over from Bangladesh, but that has not really resulted in anything of serious proportion. There have been concerns expressed, there has been some opposition, but if you have literally millions of people who have no place to go but to come over the border between Bangladesh and India, that has the makings of a conflict.
If you can anticipate that there are going to be large population movements from, say, a deltaic region like Bangladesh, to parts which fall into the Republic of India, the Union of India, you can begin to start making policy to make that population movement more regulated.
And obviously, the geographical limits of Bangladesh has a limitation. So there is going to be a very major spillover into India. And this spillover, I think, is going to create a lot of political, social, economic and ecological problems for both Bangladesh and India.
I mean, India has its own problem too. It's also a densely populated country. We don't expect that only because my neighbor they will be accepting within the framework of nation states that they will be accepting my people, or we will be accepting theirs. So, and India is not directly the cause for creating this problem. So those who have created this problem, it's their moral responsibility and they to address this.
This is not just an issue of Bangladesh, it's an international issue, and we are always clamoring about the international players having a responsibility. So I don't think just pouring in money for climate change projects and here are going to be enough. This refugee issue they should involve, so that if the people are displaced and physically do have to move, why should it just be India? Why shouldn't the countries which are responsible for this climate change also have the responsibility to rehabilitate these people?
Resentment is increasing about the attitude of the global policymakers. India is expected to be the obvious destination for climate change refugees, but the rest of the carbon-emitting world is doing very little about the problem. The West is seen as both very powerful and very selfish.
You see, the nonsense that the West is talking right now is that the growth of emissions is greatest in these third world countries. We are told that we must not grow so much rice because rice paddy fields have gaseous emissions that create further problems. These are things that are the basic requirements of survival of the poorest of the poor at the lowest level. Why don't you stop running around with 3 motor cars per head in the United States? The issue is where the greatest volume of emissions coming from.
America's carbon consumption emission is the highest, and now in different countries we are being affected by that. And the Americans are trying to say that, okay, we have created this problem, you please adapt to this and take some money for that. This is not going to happen. No rational, right-thinking people can accept it.
Exactly. I mean, we have vast tracts of land, even in America, Australia, and it might sound like a very hippie sort of idea that's about political borders and all, but this is reality. I mean, we have vast tracts of land all over the world which are empty. And over here we're going to struggle in this tiny area of land and just, like osmosis go over into India. That doesn't seem right to me. I think they have a responsibility to rehabilitate these people.
We're a small country, it's Bangladesh. We're a highly densely populated country. So if we try to adapt, it means are the Americans going to tell us that we will have to live in the box and adapt to that? No, we are not going to accept it.
I think when it comes to the environmental issues, whether you like it or not, ultimately it has an impact on all of us. And it's going to have an impact particularly on the developing world, on poorer societies, more than it is going to on rich societies.
It's about a growing conflict between rich states and poor states, between the rich and the poor inside each country too, all together brewing global unrest.
I think those who are talking on climate change issues, actually we do not try to see this as a single event or it is coming just alone. It will be sitting on top of the existing problems that we have already observed.
Something has to be done about this. We're not lemmings just going to fall into the Bay of Bengal. The time has come now to create these bodies within our country, create a voice strong enough to address these things at international forums, whether it's United Nations or whatever.
Because local people in America will not be welcoming the people from Bangladesh or say India, for example. So that's inevitable. But the rulers, the policymakers, those who have done it, that's their responsibility to resolve this problem.
Welcome to this site that will meet you in future much more regularly. You don't see this often, but your children will see it more and more. All around us there is water, and this is a very large flood, and the water will probably go away in a month or two. But this is how it will look like as the sea rises, as the water rises because of climate change. It is all right if it is happening to Bangladesh, or maybe even South Asia. You don't have to care. But this could also, maybe why this could, this will also happen to you. And it is not about water, because climate change is not an environmental problem. It's a social problem, an economic problem, created by a consumer pattern, an economic system, a social distribution system, which just isn't sustainable. It isn't working. I mean, how much more evidence do you need than to see that the spending, the money, the wealth, the buildings, the poverty have all got so screwed up, so badly for everyone, that it is not an indictment of nature, but it's of what we have done to nature, because we are greedy. So accepting that we are greedy is very important. To know that we consume to an extent that is not sustainable. To know that we can actually kill ourselves. In this suicidal race to eat more, to have more, we are also killing our children. We are becoming murderers. Now to prevent our murders, to prevent the end, and the rich obviously think that it will not happen to them. Unfortunately, climate change is going to affect everyone today or tomorrow. We need to start rethinking about the future. Do we have the courage to do so? With every problem that you can dream of, and a few that you don't even think of related to climate change will happen, and it will get all of us. It will certainly get us, but it will also probably get you. And that, I think, is the bad news.